What's up, guys? Today I'm going to be talking about how to turn a losing split test into a winning split test that actually move conversion rate upwards. This is a pretty game-changing thing, honestly, if you're able to figure this out, either by learning something from your losing split test or turning it around into a winning test. That's the difference between average and someone who's really amazing and a brand that's doing really well, and continue to see those wins stacked upon each other. So I will dive into this process in this video, and I've wrote down a ton of notes. I'm actually going to share my screen so you can see my notes, because it's going to be easy for you to sort of digest what it is I'm talking about here. And it's a pretty long video because there's a lot to talk about, but I'm pretty sure if you just stick around for less than 20 minutes, you will learn so much about what to do. And this is going to be valuable if you work with a partner that is doing CRO for you, or if you are doing it yourself through your own team. These are processes you should be implementing if you want to see the biggest improvements from your CRO efforts. All right, let's dive into it. Let me share my screen. I'm just going to pop it in here. I've written down a lot of notes, and what I wrote down here is you want to make sure that you're seeing a revenue, AOV, or conversion uptick. But the million-dollar question is how you can turn them around if you're losing on a test. And the first thing you really want to do is audit and analyze the results. That's the first thing. You're not even in the beginning going to test your hypothesis whether it actually is something that increases conversion rate outright, or if this is something that people care about. In the beginning, we're just going to do auditing and analyzing results. And this is really key because there are a lot of tests. We do hundreds of tests per month. There's a lot of tests where they're failing due to bugs or issues, and your design is simply not showing up as you have planned. So basically, you want to first understand and audit the tests before you even reject your hypothesis. And let me give you an example here. If you have a customer, let's say you have a split test you want to run. In our case, it would be a customer, right? Because we're doing split tests on customer websites. And we have a selected area where we're basically going to be testing whether the description of their scents, because this is a product that has certain smells, if that is confusing to people, if there's a dilemma. And I'll actually show you the example here of this specific website that I'm talking about. What we can see here, and this could be an hypothesis for a split test, right, is that basically we believe that these names here, they're all like really nice and they sound nice, like the Viking, the surfer. It sounds amazing, but I have zero idea what this smells like. And so it's causing me to basically not move forward, not to take any action. So I could pick the Patriot, I just don't know what it smells like. And that's a huge issue, right? What I have to do in order to understand this is navigate down here, find that by chance. Not everyone will even find it. And then I'll have to navigate down here to understand it smells like leather, cedar, and black pepper. So that's inconvenient. And you can bet even on phone, less people will find this. Our hypothesis here could be that we could add an image of leather or cinnamon or lavender or whatever it might be next to the name, and people would have an easier time understanding what scent it is, what it actually smells like. So that could be one execution. Another execution could be that you literally write in brackets leather, cedar, and whatever the last thing was, pepper, next to the name. So now I'm browsing down and I can see the Patriot, and I can actually see the ingredients, what it actually smells like. And this is going to make it so much easier to decide what scent to pick. But as you can see, I had two solutions here. So the hypothesis is this is confusing, but the execution can take various forms. You can solve the solutions in many, many different ways. And the million-dollar question, which what this video is all about, is should I reject the hypothesis or should I reject the execution, because the execution could basically not solve what we're hoping it will solve. So how do you find out? How do you deal with all this stuff? This is what we're talking about today. So the first thing we do in order to understand what's going on, let's say we have a losing test, is we QA everything. So this is something you want to set up a flow for. QA everything. This means we need to understand if everything is loading the way it should be loading, if the design is being set up the way we want it to be. So with this specific case here, imagine that it loads perfectly on desktop, but on phone, it's not visible because the name is too long and it's not showing up correctly in the selector. That could be tons of issues. So how do you do this? Use a website like like Browser Stack. That would be a really, really, really good one. We use it for all our clients. So basically we go in and test on different devices and stuff like that. So definitely recommend buying access to that and just see if everything is loading correctly. That is one way to do it, and we always start there. Obviously, we also do a lot of testing ourselves. We have QA experts in our company, so we're always testing everything to a really, really, really like crazy degree. But this is an easy way for you to get going. If you want to test things, go into Browser Stack, use the free trial, and test your tests to see if everything is loading correctly. The second thing we really like to do is use something called markup.io. And the reason why I love that is I can put my web version of the test into markup, and I can compare it to my Figma file or design file, and I can see if it's being executed the way I want it to be. I want to see if the dimensions are perfectly aligned. I want to see if the buttons are working the way they should. So obviously we also check for functionality here. So all the buttons we click on it, we do everything in order to understand if it's loading as it should. So these are two really, really powerful ways you can QA things, and I highly recommend that. Next, after these two things, is obviously at this point we look at if there are any game-changing bugs. So let's say there was a huge bug, the button didn't show up, or you could literally not see the full description or the image. So basically my execution was not shown correctly. Then we would obviously fix that and then just launch the test again, because that could be such an easy way to basically fix it and actually get real results. So that's number one. But let's say that the QA shows there's nothing wrong, everything loads perfectly. Then you would proceed further into more data work. You would go deeper to understand what's going on. At this point, we want to look at session data for every single user, although not everyone if you have a lot of data, but we want to look at all the data, and we want to look at recordings, because recordings are so good in order to understand what's going on. You know, obviously you can use stuff like Mouseflow, which is, I just pull up a random account here. You could use Mouseflow, you could use Hotjar. This just use Clarity if you want to get a free or cheap version. And you can go into session replays and you can look at all the session recordings, and you can actually see what people are doing. And you can obviously look at only people exposed to the variant, or you could look at everyone if you want to get a clearer picture of the ones exposed to the control version. Why is this important? Well, you can get so much data out of it. Sometimes you can just catch what is going wrong in your test. They're not engaging with the section you have created. Something is not displaying correctly or anything like that. But the main thing is here that you want to add and play with the filters here, because otherwise you might have way too many recordings to go through, and that can be very, very consuming. It can be hard for you to do. So what are some of the filters we like to work with? We definitely want to work with everyone who interacted or scrolled past or clicked on an event or an area that we changed. Now, in order to do that, you need to set up these in Google Analytics 4 as specific triggers, or you need to engage with a recording software or your conversion software like convert.com or Supersonic, which is our own software. And you just set up the rules in there to say what you want to record. So if I say I want to create an event for everyone that engages with this button, just clicks on it one time. And I can also create another event for everyone that picks a send in here as well, because that is very important, because I want to look at those recordings in there. So if I have everyone that just clicked once at least, then I know those recordings are going to be super, super relevant for me, because we know that they're exposed to what we're trying to fix here, which is we want to eliminate that dilemma of not understanding what send to pick. So this is by far going to just remove the most amount of irrelevant recordings, and that's going to be easier for you to understand. You're basically going to have an easier time taking action on it, right? But you could also do filters like everyone who didn't bounce, everyone who added a card, everyone who purchased, stuff like that. It's going to be really nice because you can see relevant recordings, which is really, really key here. So that's it. And you can basically also use Hotjar. But one thing I do like to use a lot is also look at friction scores and rage clicks as well. That can be really nice to understand if there's anything based on my filters up here that causes people to do rage clicks or frictions. And this is just their internal tools inside of these softwares to let you know that there was some kind of friction here, right? So you can basically look at friction scores to understand what is going on there. So that's super, super good to understand. Let's proceed a little bit further, because we're gonna go really deep here. We're gonna go even further. So we looked at recordings, maybe we found some issues there. Or if we haven't found anything so far, we can go a little bit deeper. We can look at heat maps and click maps as well. So heat maps will tell us how far down the page they're scrolling and what they're clicking on and where their attention is going and so forth. So if the scroll depth shelf is really short and they're not even being exposed to your experiment or to what you have changed, that's obviously an issue. And then you might want to change something, like maybe you want to move up your design change further up, or maybe you want to go about changing the page so they do scroll further down. Eliminate certain things can be very helpful as well. So these are the things that we look at. We look at click maps and attention scores and so forth as well, because attention can be really nice in case you're writing in or adding in copy. You want to see if they're actually reading it as well. So these are filters we look at all the time, and it's very, very insightful. If you want to go a step further than that, we have been having really good success with user groups. These can be conducted online using stuff like UserBrain, but there are tons of other ones out there, so you can definitely go and find whatever you think is better. But what we really like to do here is ask people questions. It's very inexpensive. It's a few bucks, maybe is like 10 or 20 bucks per user that goes through a test. And inside of UserBrain, you can basically create a test and you can set up anything you want in here. And you can see this is predefined to old questions we've used in the past. But what works really well if you're trying to test your hypothesis is to ask people whether there is a problem here. So if we go a little bit deeper here, basically we could say, okay, we have a hypothesis that the scents are not clear. So what you could be doing inside of UserBrain is ask people and say, hey, do you believe that there is anything difficult about deciding what scent to pick on this website? And then if they say no, that's super clear, I didn't have any issues, then you can immediately see that your hypothesis is super weak because there's clearly no issue. On the other hand, if everyone is saying, yes, I don't know what scent to pick because it's difficult to understand what they smell like, then there's definitely something here. So you can test your hypothesis by simply asking them whether there is an issue with a specific element, and then always remember to ask them to clarify their reasoning, why they think there's no issue or why they think there is an issue and what that issue may be, because you want a clarifying answer that gives you hints as to what the solution may be. So if they're saying it's unclear what scent I'm picking up, then okay, if I just explain what the scents are about, then that's the solution to this issue, right? So this is really, really powerful, and you can test your hypothesis in there. Other thing you could also do is you could test your execution of the solution. So if we know that, first of all, people have an issue with the scents, we could prepare 3 different solutions to this problem. So one solution is we just add an image with like a picture of leather or lavender and see if that's enough. And another solution could be to add in the actual scents in brackets next to this name right here and see if that is a solution. And you could come up with maybe additional solutions. And then you could ask people to review which ones of these designs do you think give the best picture of what scent you're picking when going through this list right here. And then basically everyone will vote and they will give you the best solution. And then what you can also do here is say, do you feel like there is a better solution out there, or do you feel like any of the existing solutions could be improved upon? And a lot of these users will actually tell you what they think could be improved in your 3 designs of whatever solutions you have for this specific problem. So UserBrain is super powerful, and this is something I definitely want you to pay attention to. This was a lot of information, but I think it's really powerful if you're able to, first of all, QA everything, right? See if there's any solutions. Use Browser Stack for that. Use markup.io to compare your design to your web version that is live right now. Make sure you're QAing everything and just clicking on all the buttons and see if there's anything wrong. If that doesn't work, move on to session recordings to understand what is happening. Are people interacting with what you're doing, with the designs you're improving upon, and see if there's any obvious issues, and that will give you hints as to what you should change, what you should improve. And then finally, after you've gone through click maps and heat maps and attention maps and so forth, go through something like UserBrain and test your hypothesis to see if users agree with what you have proposed or if it should be rejected. And finally, you can also test the different versions of your solution to see which one users prefer. This is going to give you a really, really clear picture on how to improve. And if you do this, and this is the big kicker here, we do this all the time, and 25% of the tests we're proposing, we can turn those from losers or flats into winners. So this is absolutely game changing, because the best CRO agencies out there, they will have a win rate of 25 to 50%. And the reason why they only have 25% could be because they're just testing and spraying basically trying everything. Or it could be they're not able to analyze your losing tests and turn them into winners. And we have seen that the biggest winners we actually have are the ones where we turned it from a loser into a winner. And I think it has something to do with the fact that we go really deep, we analyze what went wrong, and we engage in user testing and heat maps and click maps, and all that combined just gives us a really strong execution in the end. And it just shows to you that sometimes you need to spend a little bit more time on this, you just need to go deeper. But other times as well, obviously you don't want to double down on a loser, you want to get it out of the way and just move on to the next one, right? So this is the absolute key here, is also being able to test if your hypothesis is just really bad and you need to move on to the next one. But the key is you don't know this stuff unless you test it out. And it's just a little bit funny in that all CRO agencies or even brands that say, oh, we're so data driven, they are data driven, but they fail to analyze their losing tests. And as a result, they're mediocre at best in getting their website to the highest possible conversion rate, highest revenue per visitor. And this is a massive problem. So if this sounds a little bit too overwhelming, you don't want to do it yourself, you can always schedule a call with us. We can take a look at your site to see if it makes sense for us to work together. We can give you pointers and kind of show you what you should be doing next. Maybe you're already split testing yourself and you just want someone to consult. That's possible as well with us. Or maybe you're just tired of pretty mediocre results and you want someone to take care of it. In this case, we could be a really good fit. And you can just go on the website and click book a call if you want to have a conversation about it. But anyway, I hope this was useful. This was another long video, but I think this was a really important thing to talk about, and hopefully you got something out of it.